Okay, so now we proceed with the program of the high-level seminar. And it's my pleasure to call Dr. Luis Huerta Torquio, former executive director of the chain and former director of Claf, to conduct the panel, the first panel of today, which is on national perspectives of science cooperation in Latin America. So, Luis, thank you very much, and please.
The floor is yours. There is my pick. Thank you, Ulises. Okay, it's my pleasure to be here. I'm very thankful for this invitation, and it's my pleasure to introduce this very distinguished panel. Okay, I will make some remarks before the intervention of the different ambassadors. Good morning, everyone. Distinguished authorities, colleagues, friends, ambassadors, we are pleased to have you here for this meeting. Claf, as the director said, was founded in 1962 based on the initiative of physicists from Brazil, Mexico, and Argentina. They have in mind the progress of the entire continent, not only the 3 countries. This is the mission of Claf, to foster physics in all the region, in all the countries. And it is the mission today. It was founded under the auspices of the Brazilian government and UNESCO to foster development across the continent. The importance of the physical sciences for the progress of Latin America was understood. But physics often requires infrastructure and resources that no single country can provide alone, making diplomacy the essential engine of our scientific progress. We have just witnessed the signing of the cooperation agreement between Claf and CNPq. This happy event triggers a discussion that lies at the very heart of Claf mission since the year was founded. The intersection of state strategy and our nation's scientific progress. We are here, ambassadors, to discuss national perspectives of science cooperation in Latin America. Years ago, when I joined Claf, I shared a sobering statistic. While developed nations have hundreds of researchers per million inhabitants, Latin America had, by our best estimates, only about 7 or 8 physicists per million people. In the years since, despite our best efforts, that gap remains a challenge. We suffered a knowledge drain. Not only do our brightest minds migrate to where the research infrastructure exists, but the knowledge we produce here in our countries is also used and exploited as emerging technologies and applications in the developed nations, not in our region. We have gathered you, the diplomatic representatives, because physics and science in general is not an issue to be solved solely by physicists. We need state policy. We need to turn that knowledge drain into knowledge circulation. I would like to ask you a question or something like a remark for your intervention. If you look at these numbers and the challenge our region faces in science and technology, does your government see scientific cooperation merely as a matter of academic exchange that is a problem to be addressed by scientists? Or is there a move to integrate this problem into your national development and industrial strategies? No single nation in Latin America can independently sustain the massive infrastructure required for frontier science, physics in particular, today. This is where science diplomacy transforms from a concept into a real, concrete necessity. Okay, well, we have a very distinguished audience and concurrence here. The Ambassador Eugenio Garcia, the Director of Science and Technology Department and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Itamaraty, the Ambassador Sebastián de Polo, Ambassador of the Republic of Chile in Brasilia, the Ambassador Norman Lizano Ortiz from the Embassy of the Republic of Costa Rica, and the Ambassador Carlos Eugenio de Alba from the Embassy of the United Mexican States in Brasilia, and the Ambassador of Argentina. I don't have the name. No? Yeah, I know. So please, I would like to give you the floor in order to listen your thoughts in this meeting, the reflection you would like to share with us. And in the first place, I think I must to give the floor to the embassy, to the Ambassador Carlos Eugenio de Alba from the Embassy of the United Mexican States in Brasilia. Please, Ambassador.
Bom dia, Dr. Ulises Barres and Dr. Luis Huerta. A pleasure to be here. Good morning to everybody. On behalf of the government of Mexico, I would like to thank Brazil's Ministry of Science, Technology, and Innovation, the Latin American Center of Physics, and the Brazilian authorities for the warm welcome and for organizing this important seminar. It is an honor to share this panel with my distinguished Latin American ambassadors from Argentina, Chile, and Costa Rica, as well as my Brazilian colleague from Itamaraty, Ambassador Eugenio Garcia, and to see brilliant minds gathered here dedicated to a common goal, strengthening the future of our region through science and technology. This seminar invites deep reflection. From Mexico's perspective, physics is one of the fundamental disciplines of knowledge, with enormous potential to drive digital transformation and the development of new applications with social impact. In particular, Mexico's priorities vis-a-vis physics include energy transition, technological innovation, astrophysics and space, medical physics and biophysics, and human capital development. Therefore, scientific cooperation at the regional level is a strategic imperative for our sovereign and sustainable development. For Mexico, scientific cooperation in Latin America should be based on three pillars. First, scientific cooperation must be a tool to address common challenges. Our region shares vulnerabilities, but also immense natural and cultural wealth. Climate change, food security, energy transition, and readiness for future pandemics do not respect borders. Therefore, our responses must be regional and well coordinated. We must direct our research and innovation efforts to solve these highly relevant problems, creating knowledge from a Latin American perspective for the direct benefit of our peoples. Second, cooperation must serve as a lever for building our human capital. Latin America's greatest asset is its youth. Academic mobility programs, research networks, and shared scientific infrastructures are powerful instruments for retaining talent, training the next generation of scientists, and fighting brain drain. We need to create a regional innovation ecosystem so attractive and dynamic that our best students and researchers see opportunities to realize their potential here in Latin America. Third, cooperation must be the bridge to a more robust presence on the global stage. When Latin America speaks with a single voice in the field of science, its weight and international relevance are multiplied. Coordinated participation in international scientific projects, harmonized research agendas, and the creation of common knowledge spaces will allow us to be not just participants, but also protagonists at the forefront of global scientific and technological progress. Mexico, through its brand new Secretariat of Humanities, Sciences, Technology, and Innovation, and its main public and private universities and research centers, reaffirms its commitment to this collaborative vision and supports the strengthening of the Latin American Research Network with the objective of consolidating horizontal cooperation mechanism, sharing scientific infrastructure. We are willing to deepen bilateral and multilateral partnerships, simplify exchange mechanisms, and place our scientific and technological capabilities at the service of this urgent Latin American cause. Cooperation with MCTI, Claf, and other Brazilian institutions is essential to consolidate a regional scientific agenda that enhances our collective capacities in areas such as theoretical physics, material science, energy, and astrophysics. In this regard, Mexico reiterates its interest in deepening cooperation through joint projects with the MCTI and with leading Brazilian universities and research institutes. From this seminar, we hope will emerge not just reflections, but also concrete actions. Hopefully, we can identify common priorities and strengthen mechanisms like Claf that give more substance to this cooperation. I hope the dialogues and topics addressed here transform into research projects, mobility programs, and more effective public policies. I conclude by wishing this event success and reaffirming that the path to a more prosperous, just, and innovative future for Latin America will be paved with the knowledge we generate together. May this seminar be a decisive and inspiring step in that direction. Muito obrigado.
Okay, Thank you, Ambassador. I would like to give the floor to the Ambassador Eugenio Garcia, Director of Science and Technology Department at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Please, Ambassador.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for Claf for organizing this event, for the invitation. Also, thank you, CNPq, for hosting us this morning. I will talk about what we do at Itamaraty, the Brazilian Minister of Foreign Affairs, but also connecting this with our program and how we can strengthen our cooperation in physics in Latin America as a whole. Basically, we have a science diplomacy in our DNA since 1982, when my department was created to work on science, technology, innovation. And basically, what we do is diplomacy for science. So we have this network of embassies and consulates. And in 66 of them, we have sections on science, technology, innovation, and making connections, trying to build bridges between Brazilian researchers and researchers institutions overseas. We have a program called Innovation Diplomacy, when we support with resources and funding for activities, seminars, or exchange programs that our embassies and consulates submit, and then we approve them and we try to showcase Brazil as a country capable of innovating. But the ultimate goal in our case is to make science, technology, innovation a foreign policy priority. Because when there is a political priority, we can ensure that resources are available, but otherwise it's just people say that science technology is important, but the funding never comes. And this is, as you said in the beginning, Mr. Chair, it's extremely difficult for one single country, especially developing countries, in our case, in Latin America, to afford these sort of investments in physics or in science, hard science, and so many other areas that require vast amounts of resources. So I think the Brazilian national ecosystem in terms of science technology is very dynamic, as you know, in many areas. Just two examples in physics, we have CNPq, Jose Roque is here, he'll talk about this later. And we have Sirius, the particle accelerator, and also the Orion project, which is the maximum level biological containment, NB4, that is under construction and will be linked to Sirius. So this, I think, the first NB4 lab linked to a source of synchrotron lights. So Roque is confirmed. And this is really amazing in terms of scientific infrastructure. And because that's the idea, that if we are able to share also our resources, human talents and infrastructure, we can do more together. And another example is the Brazilian Center for Physics Research. I understand there are representatives from CBPF here. Yes. So I also, they're doing an amazing job and have a new quantum lab, also in artificial intelligence. So it's, our colleagues will be here to give more details. But in particular, these two areas, I think they are strategic: quantum technologies and artificial intelligence. So of course, we need to strengthen what we already have, but we need to identify, as I was talking to my colleague, the Mexican ambassador this week, we need to create or identify new areas of cooperation, especially in these strategic fields and in quantum technologies. The Brazilian MCTI is now preparing an initiative, a quantum initiative, and a sort of a national plan. And we have several clusters and groups in Brazil working on this. For example, Senai, Sematec, in the state of Bahia, but also the University of São Paulo, and now the state of Paraíba in the northeast of Brazil. They recently launched a new international quantum center, and they will be acquiring a quantum computer, and this will help not only, but also help processing data from the Bingo radio telescope, which is also in the state of Paraíba. So this is in quantum, but in AI in particular, we have, of course, the Brazilian plan for the AI for the good of all, which we call PEBIA. And in one of the goals of PEBIA is also to encourage projects of international cooperation among developing countries. So it's precisely what we are discussing here today, in terms of cooperation with the Global South, but of course Latin America. And so I would invite you to explore new projects in terms of not only quantum and AI, but in other areas of physics. So this is what we try to encourage as Itamaraty, in terms of diplomacy for science, helping making these connections and building bridges. But also we have a science for diplomacy. And this is more than ever what we need today, because there is a very complex situation and we need international cooperation, because science has no borders. The language of science is universal. I'll give you an example. We have this very large project in the United States, DUNE, as you know, deep underground neutron experiments. It's led by Fermilab, organized by the Department of Energy in the US, but this is an international consortium, international collaboration. And the three major partners are Fermilab, number one, CERN, we have here Salvatore from the European Organization for Nuclear Research. And the third is precisely CNPq, which it is a clear indication that how important it is to be connected with these global networks. And we have, as you know, this situation with the Trump administration, and it's now perhaps at the highest level being dealt with, and I think we'll find a solution very quickly. But it's important to say that even in the worst moments of the bilateral relationship between Brazil and the US, I understand that the project DUNE never stopped. And the international collaboration between these and among these institutions, including from Brazil, in case of CNPq, this has never stopped. So this is a science for diplomacy, because we need to enhance our cooperation at all levels. And talking about CERN, as I think you know that Brazil became an associate member of CERN in 2024. And also just to highlight that last year, we also joined the Eureka network, which helps countries to finance projects on research and development and innovation. So just a few examples, but again, in terms of science for diplomacy, as I said, we live in a world where people still deny climate change. So more than ever, we need science and we need scientific-based evidence to restore truth, to build trust, and we need science to come to the rescue, basically. You know the example of Brazil and Argentina back in the 80s, when we have this nuclear cooperation between the two countries that helped for the political rapprochement of Brazil and Argentina, and then led to the establishment of Mercosur. So this is just an example of the science for diplomacy. And I think to conclude, our approach in terms of science cooperation in Latin America is based on this understanding that we should come together regardless of any other difference, could be political, ideological. Unfortunately, desafortunadamente, we have a situation in Latin America in terms of political polarization and division in different views on different topics. So regardless of this difference, we should build trust together and promote international cooperation. And I hope we can do it in many fields of science, and physics will lead the way. I will stop here. Thank you.
Sorry. And now I give the floor to the Ambassador Sebastián de Polo, the Ambassador of the Republic of Chile. Please, Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Bom dia, buenos días, good morning to you all. I would like to share some thoughts on our national perspective on science and technology and innovation. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs is the main coordinator of Chile's foreign policy and in particular of science diplomacy, a task driven and carried out by the Division of Science, Energy, Education, Innovation, and Astronomy. And this aims is to ensure that science, technology, knowledge, and innovation is expressed as a comprehensive action in line with a long-term national development vision. In this regard, our country's international projection is based on enduring principles, the defense of democracy, respect for international law, the promotion and protection of human rights, support for multilateralism and free trade, and a commitment to the peaceful settlement of disputes. These principles are complemented by development of renewable energy, environmental and ocean protection, the protection of our sky through astronomy, and our Antarctic presence. These pillars guide our actions in the field of science diplomacy and form the basis of our international participation in science, technology, knowledge, and innovation. We live in a global context characterized by increasing tensions between major powers. The international system is segmented into blocks with a proliferation of minilateral agreements and ad hoc coalitions. For the countries of our region, this poses significant challenges, maintaining a balanced position, safeguarding strategic autonomy, and strengthening regional cooperation. These global dynamics directly impact science, technology, and innovation. The pace of technological innovation is accelerating so rapidly that it outpaces regulatory and diplomatic response. Technologies emerge and are deployed faster than states can agree on common rules, standards, and safeguards. This scenario opens up significant opportunities, but also pose risks that cannot be ignored. For example, artificial intelligence can strengthen public services, increase productivity, and generate robust evidence for public policy decisions. But without clear ethical and regulatory frameworks, this advance can exacerbate biases, violate rights, and solidify technological dependence that are difficult to reverse. Beyond the immediate impacts, cybersecurity and digital sovereignty have become strategic pillars of national security and development. The absence of clear regulations on artificial intelligence, technological infrastructure, and data governance increases the vulnerability of our countries and limits their capacity for autonomous decision-making. International experience also demonstrates that the collapse of a global cloud service provider or the decision of a key player in quantum computing can have systemic effect of entire economies. Therefore, every decision regarding technological infrastructure must also be interpreted in terms of sovereignty and security. The challenges are not only technical, technological, or administrative, but also strategic, requiring proactive and planned coordination. In this context, the technological gap also opens opportunities for regional collaboration. Projects like LATAM GPT shows positive results and exemplify how cooperation can boost local capabilities. This could allow for the exploration of other initiatives aimed to strengthening digital autonomy and reducing external technological dependence. The energy transition has made certain resources strategic, such as lithium, green hydrogen, and other critical minerals, in which the region, our region, has significant potential. This situation makes the region a relevant player on the international stage, but also exposes into a new pressures, expectation, and interests. Thus, the necessary and urgent energy transition currently face tensions stemming from cost, insecurity in the electricity supply, and the need to develop new infrastructure. In this complex scenario, science, technology, and innovation take on a strategic character. Promoting them is essential to generating adaptation solutions, strengthening regional resilience, and ensuring sustainable, inclusive, and secure development in the face of current and future challenges. Reaching broad political consensus can be complex, hence the importance of also moving forward through specific technical agreements supported by an operational work plan that guarantees the effective implementation of the action and initiative derived from this framework. In this sense, there is a concrete opportunity to deepen the exchange of experiences and policies, establish common standards, strengthen governance frameworks, and share best practices. For Chile, scientific cooperation in Latin America is a condition for our development and strategic autonomy. It's not an option. The magnitude of the challenges we face exceeds the capacity of any single country. Therefore, by better coordinating our infrastructures, talent, and research agendas, the region could move from being primarily a user of knowledge to becoming a producer and designer of technological and scientific solutions on a global scale. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador De Polo. Now I give the floor to the Ambassador Norman Lizano Ortiz, representative of the Embassy of the Republic of Costa Rica. Please, Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Gracias, Luis. Good morning. First of all, I would like to thank Claf, the Ministry of Science and Technology of Brazil and UNESCO for inviting me to participate in this high-level event. We are in December already, so every December I do some retrospective on why this year was important for me. And in 2025, I turned 50. So now I know that I have more life in my back than in my front. And this is why every time I take the floor, I would like to start with an anecdote. And today I will not only start with an anecdote, but I will also finish with another one. So my anecdote is that in 1997, when I was 22, I got a scholarship to study Italian in Rome, but the scholarship only covered the tuition and some expenses to the month I was gonna live there in Rome, and I was supposed to pay for my airfare. So the cheapest flight from Costa Rica was to Düsseldorf in Germany with the airline that doesn't exist anymore, which is LTU. And at that time, that was pre-internet times, so there was things were more difficult, but also there was more solidarity. So I remember that my mom told me, "Oh, there's a friend of a friend who lives near Düsseldorf. Maybe you can stay there for a couple of days when you arrive, and then you can also get to know Köln, which is Colonia, which is very close." So that was what happened. I went to Düsseldorf, and I stayed for 3 days in the house of a Costa Rican who was doing his PhD in physics with his family in a city called Bochum, near very close to Düsseldorf. And I always say that the best trip to Europe, especially for somebody who likes history and geography like myself, is not place related, but time related, because it's always the first time you go to Europe. That's the best trip you can do. So for me, that month was really amazing. And I was very grateful with that family who hosts me for 3 days. So when I received the invitation for this seminar, and my secretary told me, Ambassador, Dr. Rodrigo Carboni is inviting you to a seminar that will take place in Brasilia on the 5th of December. I said, really? Of course I'm going, because that family who hosted me in 1997 was Rodrigo and his family. And it was 28 years since I don't see Rodrigo until half an hour ago when I saw him. So I was always grateful to him because he didn't know me and he hosted me for 3 days. So gracias, Rodrigo, de nuevo. Y traje incluso una foto que ahora te voy a enseñar de ese viaje. Scientific cooperation, that's the topic that I was supposed to talk about today. For Costa Rican, this is a very new topic, especially for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, formally speaking. As Ambassador Garcia from Brazil, he was saying that in 1982 already, Brazil created a division to deal with the issue of scientific diplomacy. In our case, it was not only until 2021, after the pandemic, that we created one department in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to deal with the issue. For me, it's completely new. Back in 2000, when I joined the Foreign Ministry, I didn't have to study about it, or even though during my previous work in Geneva, I was also dealing with science diplomacy or diplomacy for science. I don't know. I don't even know the jargon. I don't know how it's called, but I saw in the program that Guillermo from UNESCO will give a lecture on this. So I will pay attention also to learn from this. But this is something we do also nowadays in our embassies, as my colleagues from Mexico and Chile said before me, and also the ambassador from Brazil. Alongside other issues we always have done, like promotion of trade, tourism, cultural promotion, and of course political dialogue, which is basically what we do in our embassies. I would say is that science diplomacy is divided in two topics. One is, as you said, science in diplomacy, and the other one is scientific cooperation. Science in diplomacy nowadays for our work is very important, and I think one of the best examples we can give is, as also my colleagues have mentioned, is the one on climate change. It's very recent for us, especially the ones living here in Brazil. We had 1 month ago the COP30 here in Belém. I was there especially for the high level segment, and I can assure you that in most, if not all the statements by heads of states or ministers themselves, they were always saying that we need to rely on science, and this is the best way we can rebate those who say no, this is a myth, climate change is not happening, because there's scientific evidence that shows how the world has changed in the last 5, 10, 100 years because of human impact on what we're doing on our planet. So this is why also the United Nations created this scientific panel on climate change, and I know we all relied on what they say. Also, one of the fields in where I have worked the most, especially previously to my post in here in Brazil, was in disarmament, both in The Hague and Geneva. And I will recall that the very first resolution of the United Nations was on science diplomacy. It was on the peaceful uses of nuclear nuclear energy. No, that's why also we created the IAEA. That's in Vienna. And also one of the reasons why most of the countries signed in the 70s, late 60s and 70s, the Non-Proliferation Treaty. Not only because you are obliged not to have nuclear weapons and not to develop if you don't have it, but also because of the third pillar of that convention, which is cooperation on nuclear issues. Because nuclear issues are important, especially you physics know this very well. The uses it has to prevent and to treat cancer, also for energy. So we should all cooperate on the peaceful uses of nuclear energy. I would like to give you some examples of what we do in Costa Rica on science cooperation. I think one of the best examples I found, but I also had to work on the issue, was on snake bites. So in the creation of venoms, especially this is something I worked when I was in Geneva, because at that time we had a scientific in Costa Rica who is an expert. His name is Jose Maria Gutierrez, and he was working for the Clodomiro Picado. Clodomiro Picado was one of the most prominent Costa Ricans we had in the last century, and he was even in Costa Rica we say that he invented the penicillina before Fleming. The thing is that he didn't patent it as Fleming did, but he was working especially on how to create venoms in order to apply on people who were bitten by snakes, because tropical diseases is one of the issues in which countries like the Latin American countries can work together. Is something that, of course, the Americans, the Europeans won't work because they are not in the tropical as we are. And Brazil has very good institutes like Biomanguinhos and Butantan, who work on Chagas, also on snake venoms. Now Butantan has just created a new vaccine for dengue, which is one of the worst diseases we have in tropical areas. So we've been working together on how to exchange knowledge and to cooperate on these issues, and this is something we should all build on. Also, Costa Rica has an agreement with CERN. You all know CERN. Salvatore, whom I haven't met, but I will meet him later, works there. There have been already at least 10 Costa Ricans who have had the opportunity to do some internships in CERN. When I was in Geneva, I also remember when I had the opportunity to visit the Large Hadron Collider. It's impressive. All of you who have been there know how important this work is for physics. More recently, Costa Rica and Ecuador, we work together under the prescription of Article 76 of the United Nations Law of the Sea Convention. That allows for countries to widen the continental shelf if they prove that there's place to explore, conserve, and export some difficult conditions on the continental shelf. So Costa Rica has a large proportion of its territory on the Pacific Ocean due to the Cocos Island, which is located 36 hours from Punta Arenas in our coast. And also with Galapagos Island in Ecuador, we have created un corredor biológico, and due to the scientific data that both countries provided the United Nations, we were able to expand our continental shelf and also to protect this area. And in the future, we will explore and also conserve all the minerals and other species that we can find there. We have some programs on triangular cooperation as well with Korea, especially in Central America, because Costa Rica has very good institutes on agriculture. We have the INTA, we have the ICA, which is the Inter-American Institute for Agriculture. So we have provided some knowledge on agriculture to our brothers in El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras. During my tenure here in Brazil, every time I go on an official visit to another state, I always visit the federal universities, which are among the best in Latin America. I can give you some examples. When I was in Rio Grande do Sul, there's the University of Caxias do Sul, and they are doing very interesting experiments on graphene. So we have created some cooperation, some transfer of technology with some institutions in Costa Rica, and more recently with the University of Brasilia here in the city, because they are also developing some technologies on agriculture to make the fungicides more effective, so that you don't have to drop like 2 times a week some plaguicidas or fungicidas on the crops, but you can do it once every 2 or 3 weeks. So this is some cooperation we're also working on, and we also have some agreements with other countries, especially in agriculture, with Peru, Colombia, Uruguay, and I would like to finish by saying that as we have the Ministry of Tourism as a background to promote tourism in Costa Rica, Ministry of Trade to promote exports and also to look for investment, and Ministry of Culture to promote culture, is not only the Ministry of Science and Technology on the one we rely on, but also universities and research institutes. So in the area of cooperation for science or science cooperation, the role of research institutes is also very important. And one last thing, the ambassador of Mexico was saying that we need to prevent brain drain. I think this is a common challenge we all have in Latin America. Our best scientists, they go to the research institutes in Europe and the United States. This is something difficult to prevent, but we also we should take advantage of that as well, and to bridge bridges with all, in our case, Costa Ricans, but also Mexicans, Brazilians, or Peruvians who are there, and ask them not to forget their origins, their countries, their places where they started their stories, and to come back to our countries and give us the knowledge they have. In Costa Rica, we have a very good example, which is Franklin Chang Diaz. He was the first Latin American astronaut, and also I think he still has the record on more minutes in the space. I know Brazil also has an astronaut, and Cuba as well. But Franklin Chan, he came back to Costa Rica and he built a laboratory in Guanacaste, which is in the west part of Costa Rica, and he's giving back all the knowledge he has. And I said that I was going to finish with an anecdote, and so that's why I brought this book. In 2023 was the year of Oppenheimer in the cinema. So, and since I've been working most of my diplomatic career on disarmament, my mother gave me for Christmas this book. It's called El espía que robó la bomba atómica by Anne Hagedorn. It's a very good book because it's very well written, And I learned the story of this guy. His name was George Koval, and he was a spy for the Soviet Union during the Manhattan Project back in the 40s. And I learned that by all the things he learned, which it was not that he just wrote what was the secret formula for the atomic bomb and he sent it to Moscow. It was not like that. And we learn in school that you learn the science by failing. You do an experiment, you fail, then you try another thing. So what he was learning is what you shouldn't do to get the atomic bomb, and that saved the Soviet Union 7 years, because so that was the reason why the Americans discovered that there was a spy, because it was not in 1955 that the Soviets got the bomb. It was 1948. So 7 years before they thought they were going to achieve the bomb. Because in this case, it was not cooperation, but if there's cooperation in science, we can save humankind many, many, many years of failure. Because if we share the knowledge, we know how to get there rapidly and easily. So this is something I think you all guys know, and this is why events like this are important, because we share the knowledge we have, and we can all create a better humankind. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. I would like to thank all the ambassadors. Oh, sorry.
Mr. Chairman, if you allow me.
Please, Ambassador.
Well, thank you very much. Good morning to everyone. So I do not have a specific presentation to share with you this morning. I would like to express my gratitude for the kind invitation to be here to attend the opening and the first panel of this high-level seminar. I also would like to salute the rebirth of Claf and to stress the importance this intergovernmental organization has for its membership, and in particular for Argentina. We believe it is a significant forum to discuss on a specific area of scientific knowledge and to identify areas where to cooperate. So this is why we are very enthusiastic about this rebirth that you mentioned at the beginning. Finally, I would like to say that Argentina will always be willing to cooperate and work together when innovation, science, and research are involved, in the understanding that initiatives in those areas truly contribute to foster development and growth in our countries. I can share with you that the current administration in Argentina has identified 4 areas of particular interest when innovation, science, and technology are involved. Taking into account the link between the productive system and the scientific and technological system. Those areas are agro-industry, mining and energy, health, and economy of knowledge. Of course, this doesn't exclude all other areas, but those have been identified as a priority for the current administration. And concerning the last remarks of my colleague, the ambassador of Costa Rica, regarding this concept of sharing and how sharing can be helpful for everyone, I would also like to say that Argentina has always and will always be willing to share, to cooperate to transfer technology, to transfer knowledge, because we believe this is good for our region, for Latin America, and for the whole world in general. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador Raimondi. I would like to thank all the ambassadors for their enlightening words. I think your reflections are very important for this meeting, and we have listened different words, social impact, for instance. We have listened a vision from you, and also call for action. You mentioned that scientific cooperation is to be connected. This Latin American ecosystem is the way to develop our countries, to generate the network, to facilitate mobility between our countries. And also scientific cooperation means new knowledge, because we share our methods, our data, and we have common challenges as a region. Common challenges that are global, some of them, but also there are some challenges for our continent. And you have mentioned that sharing is a goal, to gather forces and capacities, to develop strategic areas. You mentioned quantum technology, AI, but also new possible projects in the future. You also mentioned that science and technology is important for democracy, for the development of human rights. But you also pronounce a very important word that is multilateralism. The cooperation of different countries together for the benefit of people. We have science and technology shared this knowledge to protect the planet for the life, but also to get knowledge about what we are. You have mentioned sovereignty. It's a word that it's related with knowledge and science and technology. And also you have mentioned defense and peace, the importance of nuclear technologies. Then I would like to, sorry? Another one? One online. Yeah. Yes. I would like to ask you to think about Claf, to see it not as a scientific office, but as a strategic partner for regional integration and development based on the scientific progress of the continent. That's the idea of this meeting, and we are very, very, very pleased, and we thank everyone for sharing your ideas, but we would like to share our goals, our expectations about this encounter. Thank you very much.